On page 318 of one of the most defining neuroscience books of the last decade, the author makes a claim that borders on science fiction. He proposes a bold hypothesis. People capable of lucid, controlled dreaming aren't just lucky individuals with vivid imaginations. They might actually be the first representatives of the next stage of human evolution. It sounds like the plot of a superhero movie, doesn't it? After all, for more than 80% of the planet's population, such dreams are neither natural nor accessible. We are used to thinking of sleep as a void, a necessary pause button. But in reality, it might be the space for our next evolutionary leap. In this video, I'm going to tell you why your brain simulates madness every single night and exactly how nightmares have made us geniuses. And make sure to watch until the very end to find out if you are already one of these future superhumans, or if your brain is still stuck on the previous rung of the evolutionary ladder. You might be thinking skeptically, well, paper endures anything. You can write whatever you want in a book. And you'd be right. Healthy skepticism is the foundation of science. However, in this case, we are dealing with a global bestseller written not by an esoteric guru, but by Matthew Walker, a professor of neuroscience who has dedicated over 20 years to studying the phenomenon of sleep. He cites the freshest laboratory research, and you won't find his work in the pop psychology section, but in serious medicine. Personally, reading those lines, I felt a mix of admiration and envy. I have never controlled my dreams. I have only a vague idea of what it's like to be the architect of my own nocturnal reality. Moreover, for me, as I'm sure for many of you, sleep is often a battlefield, not a rest area. I've always looked with suspicion and white envy at people who can just power down for an hour at lunch and wake up fresh. But, as they say, bad sleepers are used to wearing their insomnia like a badge of honor. Walker's theory about a new species of human might seem like an exaggeration, a beautiful metaphor. But history knows one genius whose experience with dreaming makes you wonder, what if the professor is right? This man fits so poorly into the box of ordinary that you can't just call him a scientist. I'm talking about Richard Feynman. To give you an idea of the scale of this personality, when Feynman was just 25 years old, the US government drafted him into the Manhattan Project to build the atomic bomb. And that was, to put it mildly, not his only achievement. He was a Renaissance man in the atomic age. He cracked safes just for the sport of it, played the bongo drums, drew magnificent portraits, and dreamed for years of visiting the distant land of Tuva. His attitude toward life and sleep is perfectly illustrated by one episode. When he got a call at 4 a.m. to inform him he had won the Nobel Prize in physics, Feynman said, "I'm sleeping," and hung up. Yes, he loved to sleep, but even more than that, he loved unsolvable puzzles, and sleep became one of the biggest puzzles of his life. Since childhood, Feynman viewed the process of falling asleep as a personal challenge, a problem that had to have a solution. It started with a riddle his father once gave him. "Imagine," he said, "that Martians land on Earth. These creatures never sleep. They are eternally awake. Our daily shutdown seems incredibly strange to them, like a ridiculous glitch in the system. So a Martian walks up to you and asks, 'What do you feel when you shut down? What happens to your mind? Do your thoughts stop instantly, like someone pulled a switch? Or do they slow down gradually, like a wind-up toy running out of energy? How does consciousness actually turn off?' I think every one of us, as a kid lying in the dark, tried to catch that elusive moment of transition. I tried too. I lay there, listening to the silence, trying not to miss the second when I ceased to be I. But every experiment ended the same way. I just found myself waking up in the morning, remembering absolutely nothing about how I fell into the void. It was made stranger by the fact that many kids, myself included, were afraid of the dark, or simply couldn't sleep without fixing their eyes on something. You lie there with your eyes open, studying the cracks in the ceiling, and then, jump cut, it's morning.
Of course, physiologically, my eyes closed, but the moment the eyelids shut was wiped from memory. As a university student, Feynman approached this question with his trademark scientific rigor. He decided to find the answer to his father's riddle no matter what. Every night, he would draw the curtains tight, turn off the lights, and get into bed, not just to rest, but to observe. He turned his bedroom into a lab and his own brain into the test subject. The first thing he noticed while balancing on the edge of sleep was the side effects we usually ignore. He found he continued to have silent conversations with himself, spinning thoughts, but simultaneously, strange visual images began to flash and fade on the back of his eyelids in the dark. These were the first harbingers of sleep. But at one point, something unnatural happened that stunned the future Nobel laureate. Feynman noticed that, while teetering on the thin line between wakefulness and sleep, he was capable of thinking about two things at once. Imagine that state. Your mind splits. It sounds cool, like a superpower, but using it is almost impossible. The thoughts that arise in this moment are wandering, chaotic. They enter your head against your will. And the most frustrating part is that it works on the principle of quantum physics. The moment the observer interferes, the object changes. As soon as you realize, wow, I'm thinking two thoughts at once, the magic collapses, and you snap back to full wakefulness. Feynman described it like this: when we sink into sleep, our thoughts continue to flow, but the connection between them becomes thinner, less logical. The interesting part is that we don't notice the lack of logic. It feels like everything's proceeding normally, right until the flash of awareness makes you ask, wait, why did I just think about that? How did I go from thinking about physics to an image of a green elephant? You try your hardest to rewind the chain, to trace the source of this absurd thought, but you can't. The memory slips away. And then you suddenly realize you've forgotten the original thought you were trying to trace too. This is an amazing discovery. We maintain the illusion of logical continuity right to the bitter end, even when the brain is generating total nonsense. And when the thread between thoughts finally snaps, when logic surrenders, that is when we truly fall asleep. And of course, we never remember crossing that threshold.
But one night, while observing himself, Feynman realized he was already asleep. He understood that the scenario unfolding before him was a dream, yet he continued to exist within it as both an observer and a participant. He wasn't seeing some dull black and white sketch, but a vivid, full-color world he could control. From that moment, his famous nocturnal experiments began. Feynman's dreams were startlingly detailed. If he dreamed of a girl with red hair standing in tall grass, he could see every individual strand, noting how the sunlight refracted through it, creating complex optical effects. His physicist brain kept working, modeling reality with frightening precision. Of course, things didn't always go to plan. Even a genius's subconscious plays tricks. Sometimes he dreamt of something totally surreal, like 3 billiard balls of different colors, one of which, defying all laws of physics, refused to go into the pocket. Upon waking and analyzing the image, Feynman realized it was a metaphor for his love life. The balls represented 3 girls he liked, and the one that wouldn't go into the pocket corresponded to a girl who had left the country. But even after studying his dreams for years, Feynman admitted he never fully unlocked their secrets. Now, it might seem strange where I'm going with this. I don't want to just talk about dreams as movies we watch at night. I want to talk about the psychosis that happens to every single one of you, every single night. Don't be quick to get offended. From a clinical perspective, what you experience in sleep is a severe psychiatric diagnosis. Last night, you had an acute psychotic episode, and tonight it will happen again. Before you reject this diagnosis, Listen to Matthew Walker's 5 ironclad arguments. First, while you slept, you saw images, objects, and people that were not actually there. Psychiatry calls these hallucinations. Second, you believed unconditionally in what was happening, even if it was impossible, like flying or breathing underwater. This is called delusion. Third, you were completely disoriented regarding time, place, and your own identity. Fourth, your emotions swung from terror to euphoria without visible cause, what doctors call emotional liability or instability. And finally, upon waking, you forgot most of what you experienced. You were hit with amnesia. Imagine for a second you behave like this during the day. You see things that aren't there, believe the nonsense, don't know who you are, cry and laugh inappropriately, and then remember nothing. An ambulance would be called immediately and you'd be medicated. However, for reasons science is only just beginning to understand, this brain state, called REM sleep or rapid eye movement, is not just normal, but critically important for our health. One of the main mysteries is how our body protects us from ourselves. If the brain is having such wild adventures, why does the body lie quietly under the covers? Feynman, watching his dreams, noted a terrifying moment upon waking. Sometimes he would realize he was in bed but was physically unable to move. He felt trapped in his own shell. You all know this phenomenon as sleep paralysis. It sounds horrific, but it is actually a brilliant fuse created by evolution. Think about the mechanics. Even when you are just lying down resting, your muscles never fully relax. They maintain tone, a slight electrical tension, a readiness for action. But when the brain prepares to enter REM sleep, where you will dream of chases, battles, or flying, a drastic change occurs. Literally seconds before the movie starts, your body capitulates completely. A signal originates from the brainstem, one of the oldest parts of our nervous system. This powerful blocking impulse shoots down the spinal cord, shutting off all skeletal muscles. Your biceps, quads, back muscles, everything turns into a limp ragdoll. An exception is made for only 2 systems. You continue to breathe, and your eyes continue to move behind closed lids. The heart, of course, keeps beating, but everything else is paralyzed. You become a prisoner in the jail of your own sleep. The irony is that while your body mimics a corpse, your brain is running at RPMs higher than during the day. If we hook a person in REM sleep up to an MRI or EEG, we see fireworks of activity. The brain is sending thousands of commands. Run, grab, scream. If not for this paralysis, we would leap up every night, crashing into wells, hurting ourselves and our loved ones, acting out our dream plots. Nature wisely put us in a physiological straitjacket to keep us safe from our own nocturnal psychosis.
But why? Why does the brain waste so much energy creating hallucinations and paralyzing the body? For a long time, it was thought that dreams were just a side effect, the exhaust fumes of a working brain, like heat from a light bulb that serves no purpose. Freud tried to find hidden meanings, repressed desires, and secrets of the subconscious masked by metaphors. Modern science, armed with scanners, is skeptical of Freud, but it agrees on one thing: dreams are not just noise. Dreams have 3 fundamental functions that form what we can call the triangle of dreaming. And these functions are so vital that without them, we wouldn't be fully human. The first function is emotional therapy. You've heard the phrase, time heals. Actually, that's not quite true. Time doesn't heal. Sleep heals, specifically dream sleep. Folk wisdom like sleep on it or the morning is wiser than the evening has a rock-solid neurobiological basis. Here is the secret. REM sleep is the only time during the 24-hour cycle when our brain completely stops producing noradrenaline. Noradrenaline is a key stress chemical, the cousin of adrenaline, which makes us feel anxiety, tension, and fear. When we dream, we relive the events of the past day, processing memories, but we do so in a unique, chemically safe environment. The brain retrieves the information, plays it back, but without the stress hormone attached. Think back to a terrible event that happened to you 5 or 10 years ago. You remember the details, you remember it was bad, but you no longer feel that ripping pain and panic that seized you in the moment. Sleep stripped the emotional shell from the informational grain. It kept the knowledge, but removed the pain. Every night, REM sleep works to peel away the bitter emotional rind from our memories, allowing us to live on. The proof of this is PTSD. In war veterans or victims of violence, this mechanism breaks. Their brain tries to process the trauma in sleep, but due to a malfunction, noradrenaline levels don't drop. As a result, they have nightmares, reliving the horror with the same intensity as reality. Therapy doesn't happen, re-traumatization happens. This clearly shows, without the proper work of dreams, we would be stuck in our past tragedies forever. The second function might seem unexpected. It is responsible for our social adequacy. Look at the faces of people around you. Our brain is an incredibly powerful facial recognition computer. In a fraction of a second, we read microexpressions, a raised eyebrow, compressed lips, dilated pupils. This is an evolutionary survival mechanism. We need to know who is in front of us, friend or foe, angry or kind. Well, it is REM sleep that calibrates this social radar every night. Experiments show a frightening correlation. People deprived of dream sleep lose the ability to distinguish subtle emotions. To a sleep-deprived person, the world becomes hostile. They start seeing threats where there are none. A neutral face looks dissatisfied. A friendly one looks suspicious. If you haven't slept, your brain switches to fight or flight mode. It stops picking up on nuances and, just in case, labels everyone around you as a potential enemy. Remember yourself after a sleepless night. Everyone is annoying. It feels like people are looking at you sideways. Now you know, it's not the people who changed. It's the settings on your internal emotion reading device that drifted because you didn't let them recalibrate in your sleep.
But there is a third function, the most amazing one. This is what made me dive into this topic. If we deprived humanity of REM sleep, we would likely remain at the level of cavemen. We would have no science, no art, no great breakthroughs. Because dreams are a generator of genius. Our boldest ideas, our most unexpected solutions, do not come from intense logical thinking, but from the chaos that happens in our heads while we sleep. During the day, our brain works logically. A follows B. But in dreams, the guardians of logic go on break. Memory blocks begin to mix in the most bizarre combinations. The brain starts looking for connections where it is impossible to see them during the day. It builds distant associations. Remember Dmitry Mendeleev. This is a textbook example. The scientist struggled for years to systematize chemical elements. He maniacally arranged cards, trying to find a pattern. His brain was saturated with information, but logic gave no answer. And only in a dream, when conscious control turned off, did his brain manage to fit this puzzle together, delivering the finished periodic table. Or Otto Loewi, who dreamt of the experiment that proved the chemical nature of nerve impulses, winning him a Nobel Prize. This isn't magic, and it isn't an accident. It is the result of the brain working in informational alchemy mode. Sleep takes all your experience, all your knowledge, and shakes it in a kaleidoscope until a new, brilliant pattern emerges. When awake, we look at a problem as if through a telescope. We see clearly, but very narrowly. Dreams turn the telescope around, allowing us to view the entire horizon of our memory and experience. This is how wisdom is born, not just as a collection of facts, but as an understanding of the deep connections between them. Skeptics will demand proof. How can you measure the creativity of a sleeping person? Neurobiologists found a way. They use the phenomenon of sleep inertia, those first few minutes after waking up when you're groggy and can't function normally. It turns out, if you wake a person during REM sleep and immediately give them anagrams or creative tasks, they solve them 35% better than when fully awake. These solutions just pop into their heads. The great inventor, Thomas Edison, may not have read neuroscience papers, but he intuitively hacked this system. He had a habit of napping in a chair during the day with metal balls in his hand. A metal frying pan sat on the floor beneath his hand. As soon as he drifted off and his muscles relaxed, the balls would crash onto the pan and wake him up. In that moment, he would grab a notebook and write down the ideas his brain generated on the edge of sleep. He used dreaming as a work tool, a break for genius. Given this incredible potential, Matthew Walker's claim about a new species of human doesn't seem so crazy anymore. People capable of controlling their dreams gain access to the purest form of creativity, free from the constraints of logic and physics. Perhaps in the future, such dreamers will solve humanity's global problems by modeling solutions in their nightly simulations. But even if you, like me, don't possess the gift of lucid dreaming, don't be discouraged. Every night when you close your eyes, your brain makes you a little more of a genius, a little calmer, and a little more human. You aren't just sleeping, you're undergoing an upgrade. And you don't need to be a superhero to do it, you just need to put your head on the pillow. I'd be grateful for any support. Leave a comment, subscribe, and hit the like button. It really helps the channel. Thanks for watching.